Welcome. We are going to talk about pre-birth planning, as you know, but I want to start by introducing you to my wife, Liesl. I actually didn't know until about 30 minutes ago that she was going to join us tonight, but you're in for a treat. She's a channel. She channels a group consciousness, a collective that we refer to as the beings of light, or BOL for short, primarily because they won't give us names for themselves, but they are very loving, very wise. They exist in a state of unity consciousness, and hopefully she'll do a little channeling of them later, perhaps in response to some of your questions. But I thought we would start with Liesl leading a centering meditation. So Liesl, do you want to take over?
Sure. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is always such a treat for me too, getting to see all these beautiful souls around the world. And I love leading these sorts of little meditations and things because I always envision all these points of light coming down into the earth plane by us all doing this together. So we're going to start out, and there's generally the beings of light generally like to have your hands in two different positions on the body. So you'll want to put your left hand around your heart area, your heart chakra area, and then your right hand just below the navel with the thumb approximately touching the navel. But that can move up or down if you feel intuitively that hand wants to go up or down a little. That right hand is meant to nourish those lower three chakras. And so if it's safe to do so, you can close your eyes gently. Bring your awareness into your body. Bring your awareness in alignment with your breath. Follow that breath in slowly and out even more slowly. And letting go on that out breath of all tension, all commotion from the day, all accumulation of past. And on that in breath, bringing in the present moment, awareness of the present moment. Life is actually quite simple because life is always right here, right now. And keeping that awareness on the breath, I want you to visualize the golden energy of Mother Earth, of Gaia, beginning to be drawn up through your feet and into your body. Such beautiful golden energy, like the energy of the sun. And her energy flows effortlessly up into your body, through the feet, through the legs, through the hips, converging at the spine, going all the way up the spine, through the arms, up through the head, and up to the top of the crown chakra. And there we open to receive divine white light energy from Source through the crown chakra. And that beautiful essence of being, that Source energy. And it begins filling your body, filling every nook and cranny, every area that could use a little more resourcing, all the way down through the body, through the torso, the arms, hands, legs, and out through the feet back into Mother Earth. Now all of the body is resourced with that beautiful Mother Earth energy and the white light energy of the heavens. And you feel these beautiful vibrations of love swirling in your heart area, merging with your own heart chakra. And in that sense of open heart space, we begin to slowly open our eyes, coming fully present into the room we're in, into this moment in time and space, feeling your body sitting or standing or whatever position you're in, and ready for this sharing together.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. She's quite good at that, isn't she? I think so. All right. I want to start by sharing with you a little bit about my personal background. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because I know some of you are familiar with my story already, but there are some people here who are not. Actually, let me get a sense of who's here. If you would, raise the physical hand if you've read part of any one of my 3 books. Okay. Raise a physical hand if you have attended a workshop either in person or online. Okay, that tells me what I need to know. So let me, for those who do not know about my background, let me just talk briefly about myself and how I came to do this very unusual work. I was actually in the corporate world for a number of years, self-employed as a marketing and communications consultant, did not like that work at all. It was very unfulfilling. And what was even worse is that I felt like there were any number of other people who could do what I was doing. It was not in any way a unique expression of my soul. And what I wanted was to do something that would be a unique expression of my soul. And so this situation went on for a number of years. But then back in 2003, 3 very important things happened, all within a short time of each other. The first thing that happened was I had my first session ever with a medium, and she introduced me to the concept of pre-birth planning. Actually, it would be more accurate to say my guides introduced me to the concept of pre-birth planning. They spoke through her and told me that we plan our lives before we're born. And what made it so compelling, so persuasive, is that they then went into this very long discussion about why I had planned my particular challenges before I came into body. And they knew everything about me without me telling them anything. The second thing that happened, all within a short time of each other, I was introduced to a woman who has the ability to go into trance and channel her higher self. So I spent about 15 hours over 5 days talking with her soul about pre-birth planning. And her soul told me in detail how it works. Those 15 hours of channeled material, that essentially served as the foundation for the books I went on to write. And the third thing that happened back in 2003, and this was the most important of the 3, I had a spiritually transformative experience in which I was doing nothing more than walking down the sidewalk in the middle of the afternoon. And I had this experience in which every time I looked at another person, this feeling of pure, overwhelming, unconditional love washed over me. And when I say unconditional love here, this was not a human kind of love. To call it unconditional love doesn't even come close to describing what it felt like, but those are the closest words in the English language. But for about an hour, every time I looked at another person, this wave of overwhelming unconditional love washed over me. And I understood as this was happening, I was caused to know, as Neil Donald Walsh would say, I was caused to know that we as souls are made literally from the energy of unconditional love. Now, what I didn't know at the time was why this was happening. That became clear a couple of years later. At that point, I had looked at a number of people's pre-birth plans for my first book. And what I found, without exception, every single pre-birth plan, no matter what was being planned, no matter how challenging it was always based on complete unconditional love for every single person involved. So that experience that my soul gifted me with as I was walking down the street a couple of years earlier, the reason that happened, it was intended to give me complete confidence that what I was finding in my research was correct, that every pre-birth plan is actually based on complete unconditional love for every person involved. So the combination of those three things, the session with the medium, that woman's channeling of her higher self, and the experience of pure unconditional love for every person as I was walking down the street, the combination of those three things got me to leave the corporate world and start researching my first book. And then that came out in 2007. It was titled Courageous Souls at the time. 2 years later, a publisher picked it up and changed the title to Your Soul's Plan. But anyway, it led to a completely different life, which I do feel is a unique expression of who I am as a soul. And it's a much, much more fulfilling, gratifying life in which I feel that I'm making a difference in people's lives. And that was what I wanted to do. So let me share with you now what I found in my research for the books. 5 main reasons why we plan challenges before we're born. If you are not familiar with these 5 reasons, you may want to take notes and jot this down. So the first reason we plan challenges is balancing and releasing karma. Balancing and releasing karma are not the same thing. Balancing karma means that you plan to have a new experience that energetically offsets a previous experience. Releasing karma means that you heal the underlying tendency that created karma in the first place. In other words, if all you do is balance karma without also releasing it, you'll end up recreating the same karma over and over again. The example I like to use to illustrate balancing karma is 2 people who had a past life together in which one was ill and the other person was that person's caregiver. When that lifetime is over and those 2 people have their life review, as we all do at the end of an incarnation, they may or may not feel a sense of incompletion around the caregiving relationship. May is the key word there, and they decide for themselves, we're complete with that or not. They're not told by God or some being or counsel external to themselves, you have karma here, you need to balance it. It doesn't work like that. They decide we're complete or we're not. If they feel incomplete with the caregiving relationship, the feeling of incompletion is the karma. So let's say they feel that way, how would they then balance the karma? Well, the easiest thing to do would be to trade places. So in the next lifetime, the one who was ill will plan to have to be the caregiver, and the one who is the caregiver will plan to have a physical illness. That's reason number 1 for planning challenges before we're born, balancing and releasing karma. The second reason is healing. And the story that illustrates this very well is in my first book, Your Soul's Plan. There's a chapter about the pre-birth planning of deafness and blindness. The deafness story is about a young African-American woman named Penelope. She was 24 when I spoke with her for the book. She was born completely deaf in both ears. She and I worked with a medium who was able to go into the pre-birth planning session she had when she planned the deafness, and we were able to hear the conversation that had taken place. And what we find as we listen to that conversation is that in the lifetime prior to this one, Penelope had the same mother she has in this lifetime. And in that past life, when she was a little girl, she heard her mother shot to death by the mother's boyfriend. Now, she didn't actually witness the murder, but she heard the gunshots that led to her mother's death. As you can imagine, she was traumatized by that, so much so that it led her to suicide later in that lifetime. So she returned to spirit from that lifetime with an energy of unhealed trauma, which now needs to be healed. In her pre-birth planning session, her spirit guide says to her, "My dear, would you prefer to be born deaf so that no similar trauma will happen to you again, and so that you can complete your healing from the last lifetime?" And she responds, "Yes, that is what I want and what I wish to do." And then what follows is a fascinating dialogue in which she and her guide work out the details of the deafness. Just as an aside here, the pre-birth choice to be female, African American, and completely deaf was not random or arbitrary in any way. One of her pre-birth intentions was to deepen in compassion. Compassion is what I call a divine virtue. The divine virtues are qualities that are very important to our souls, and the average person plans before coming into body to cultivate 2 or 3 divine virtues. Occasionally, somebody is working on 4 or 5. In my 2-day online workshop, we do an exercise in which you can determine which virtues you're working on, which is very helpful information to know because it gives deeper meaning to your most challenging experiences. But in any case, Penelope wanted to deepen in the divine virtue of compassion. And her thinking was that by being female, African American, and completely deaf, it would put her in a lot of situations that would provide both the opportunity and the motivation to cultivate compassion. And that is, in fact, exactly how it played out. She took all of her experiences as a woman, an African American, and a deaf person, utilized them to cultivate tremendous compassion, and now uses that compassion as a teacher in the deaf community. But that's reason number 2 for planning challenges: healing. The third reason we plan before we're born to experience great challenges is service to others. You're probably familiar with the concept of oneness. This is the idea that there's actually only one being in existence in the universe, and each one of us is an individualized expression of the one. This orientation towards service to others, which I can tell you is in every single pre-birth plan I've ever looked at, it's always there in some form. I think it's a natural expression of oneness consciousness, which is our natural state of consciousness when we're home on the other side. In other words, let's say that you and I are back on the other side and we're planning a lifetime together, and you experience that I am literally you. It isn't just a concept the way it is here. You actually perceive that I am literally you. Well, then, of course, you'll want to be of service to me. And conversely, if I perceive that you are literally me, then, of course, I will want to be of service to you. So this orientation towards service, I think, is a natural expression of oneness consciousness. That's reason 3 for planning challenges before we're born: service to others. The fourth reason for planning challenges before we come into body is a desire to experience contrast. I shared with you a minute ago my experience of my soul as unconditional love as I was walking down the street that day. The non-physical realm we come from, as I understand it, is a realm of total unconditional love. So if we are made from the energy of unconditional love, which was my experience that day, and if we are in this realm of only unconditional love, that means we experience no contrast to ourselves, which in turn means we don't fully understand or fully appreciate who or what we are. We don't understand what it means to be a being made from the energy of unconditional love. So I think what the soul is doing here on the physical plane is that we've come for the contrast, the not love, so to speak, which we would all agree there's a lot of, because through the experience of that contrast, by the time you go home at the end of a lifetime, you understand much more deeply what unconditional love is, which is another way of saying you have a more profound self-knowing. You understand now what it means to be a being made from unconditional love. So that's reason number 4, contrast. And the fifth and final reason, strictly speaking, is a subset of number 2, healing, but it's so important, I like to break it out as a separate item of its own. And that is correcting or healing false beliefs or false feelings about the self. The way this works is that almost everybody has had at least one past life, and usually many, in which certain things happened that caused you to pick up a false belief or a false feeling about yourself. When I say false here, I mean false from the perspective of your soul. Two of the most common false beliefs or feelings about self are one, that one is powerless, and two, that one is unworthy or perhaps even worthless. If you feel or believe yourself to be powerless, unworthy, or worthless, to your soul that feels discordant. In other words, your soul wants to heal or clear those false beliefs because the soul knows that those beliefs are not true. So how would that happen? Well, here in the third dimension where we are, what will happen is you will draw or magnetize to yourself experiences that seem on the surface to confirm the false belief or false feeling. This is actually a fundamental function of life in the third dimension. The world is set up to mirror you back to you so that you find out what lies within your consciousness, even if it's subconscious, and then you can bring it to the light of conscious awareness and then set about healing it. So again, if you believe or feel yourself to be powerless, unworthy, or worthless, you'll draw to yourself experiences that seem on the surface to confirm that to you. Now, I understand that what I've just described might sound harsh and maybe even punitive, but I can assure you it is not the universe's intention to be either harsh or punitive. The universe is loving, and what it's trying to do in its infinite love for you is mirror you back to you so that you can find out what lies within your consciousness. And if there's a false feeling or a false belief there, bring it to the light of conscious awareness and then heal it. So that's reason number 5, healing or correcting false feelings or false beliefs about oneself. So there you have the basic information about pre-birth planning. Liesl, do you want to take it from here? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I thought I would start out and give you guys just a little bit about my background. Well, I've been Rob's wife for many years now, but my channeling of the beings of light did not really open up fully until about 2 years ago. And for many, many years, I suffered really intensely from severe OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And I share that because I know that, there are probably a lot of you that are struggling in some way, shape, or form in your life, right? And you view that as the impediment to your expansion. But I want to encourage you to consider reframing that and considering the possibility that your expansion can be through your life challenges. So what happened for me with my really severe OCD and anxiety was that it was so strong that I couldn't really trust what my own mind was telling me. I knew that, it was kind of ridiculous. So I had to go really, really deep. I had to tune in and surrender to a source that was even deeper than that. And that, galvanized the process of, eventually becoming so connected with the beings of light. I of course did other things that you would traditionally do, like therapy for my OCD, but a big part of it was that forcing me to go within that challenge created. And so that's what's happening a lot of times with really big life challenges, is that it's squeezing you in some way, and it's causing you to almost be forced to recalibrate, reorganize yourself into a really efficient, coherent, aligned way. There's a channeling about this that the Beings of Light have shared that they call the pathway to a diamond. They say, your soul wants you to move into your most coherent, divinely structured, crystalline, diamond-like expression of yourself. It is up to you whether this occurs through intense evolutionary pressure exerted on you by life events, which is akin to the immense pressure that eventually restructures the carbon in a lump of coal into an exquisite diamond, or whether this occurs through your proactive embrace of your own personal evolution, which results in an internal coalescence into a divinely organized structure of self. Like the diamond birthed from the carbon in a lump of coal, this you is now both reflective and refractive of the light. Both pathways yield the resulting diamond the soul yearns to express, yet the first pathway also yields far more suffering. It is our great hope that you will choose the second way, for truly this is the path that leads home most expeditiously. Always know our love is truly with you, for our love truly is you. So what they're saying here is that your life challenges are there. They're there to create that pressure that causes that miraculous transformation of a lump of coal turning into a diamond. So in the case of spiritual evolution, that pressure provides the impetus to let go of those ego structures, those personality structures, and evolve into your more aligned self. However, if you actually choose to do that proactively, you'll find that eventually life doesn't need to squeeze you in the same way to create that kind of pressure. So that's a really good insight, I feel, for how to navigate in life. There's another thing that I'd like to share that the Beings of Light have given, which is an analogy to talk about your different soul plans. So when Rob talks about you having a life plan, you had the life plan that has, probably predominated for most of your life. But actually, there are a multitude of life plans, an almost infinite amount of life plans for you. And they are structured like a stack of papers. So if you envision this really tall stack of papers. And if you think about the thickness of any one piece of paper, the thickness is almost negligible. Well, what that thickness represents is a tiny little quantum sliver of vibration. So all of those life plans are stacked from lowest vibrational life plans to highest vibrational life plans. And depending on where your vibration falls at any given moment, that dictates what life plan you're working from. So similarly to the concept of actively participating and going after your own evolvement and evolution, if you actively raise your vibration, or more accurately, actively surrender and allow your vibration to rise, then you'll find that you'll start accessing the more higher vibrational life plans that are based much more in love and joy and peace and harmony, as opposed to the lower vibrational plans that are based more in strife and negativity. So that's something really powerful to do, is to be very proactive about your own vibrational evolution, because it really determines everything in your life and in the world. All of life is ultimately vibration. And there's one other channeling that I'd like to share. And this is related to that, in that, when I say everything is vibration, I can't stress to you enough how important vibration is. We kind of think, oh, well, that's not a physical thing. That's not solid, a vibration. But really, actually, the vibration is what causes all that is solid to manifest. It's the foundation or the substrate of the manifest world. So before anything is in manifest form, it's first in energy form. So actually, it's the energetic vibration of everything. That's where the real power and potency is. And another thing that's important to remember is, a lot of people feel that they aren't necessarily making a difference in the world. They read the news, they hear about all of these things going on, and they think, oh, what can I possibly do on the other side of the world from Ukraine, or what can I possibly do about climate change? All of these large, very difficult things for us to process. Well, your vibration, your sending out love in the world, your being in a state that is resonant in love is incredibly, incredibly powerful. So I want to share this channeling. It's called Be the Love and Light. While Gandhi's action step, be the change you wish to see in the world, is vitally important, we have a new iteration on this message, which is be the love and light you wish to feel in the world. This can lead to action, although its fundamental basis is in being. One who accomplishes very little on the external plane, but resides primarily or even occasionally in a vibration of love and light, actually accomplishes far, far more than they may realize. In essence, being the love and light you wish to feel in the world is also being the change you wish to see in the world. Your vibrational shift is the change, as vibration or energy is the foundation of all physical manifestation. Your higher vibration will automatically affect change on the physical dimension, whether or not the change occurs through action on your part or through the actions of others whose own vibration has been buoyed by yours. As all are ultimately one, it is inconsequential whether the physical actions occur through you or another. Some are meant to thrive in doing on the physical plane, while others are meant to thrive in being and holding the vibration for the doing accomplished by others. Some are even meant to move between periods of doing and periods of being. Your inner guidance will let you know what you are meant for and when. Trust and heed its calm, gentle, loving voice, and you will be the love, light, and change you wish to see and feel in the world. Always know our love is always with you, because our love truly is you. So, and there's one more channeling I would like to share to just give you a sense. You know, when you get really quiet and you go deep, you can start to feel these beautiful beings, these beautiful energies that are all around us. They're all around the planet right now. And they so want to connect with you. They so want to support humanity in this big transformation that humanity is going through. And perhaps after I share this, perhaps Rob can share a little bit more about this transformation that many of you know by the word ascension. So there is a great ascension that is happening on the planet and within humanity. And many of you came here specifically for this time of ascension. But also there are a tremendous amount of non-physical beings here that are here to provide that cocoon or chrysalis of love to the planet for this process of ascension. And this is what the beings of light had to say in regards to that and in regards to you, all of you. We wish for you to know and always remember that you are infinitely loved and infinitely supported. We love you completely and utterly without any reservation or exception, regardless of anything that you have done or not done in your current lifetime or any other lifetime. The fact that we love you in this way does not mean that we do not know you. It means that we may know you more deeply than you currently know yourself. For truly, we see all of you in the sense of you as an individual, and all of you in the sense of you as the individuals making up humanity. We do not need to forgive any of you in both senses of you, as we never judged any of you in both senses of you. For we have only correctly perceived that you have acted from a consciousness state of separation, or a consciousness state of unity, or a consciousness state somewhere along the continuum between these two. It is our greatest wish that you may come to know yourself and others as the profound love we already correctly perceive you to be, and the profound love that is the true you, and also inextricably a part of us and of all. So always know that our love is truly with you, for our love truly is you. So I'm going to turn it back over to Rob for a little while. And Rob, do you want to share some about Ascension? And then if there's anything that comes from the beings of light, I'll also share a little about Ascension.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm thinking before we do that, should we talk about the upcoming workshops?
Oh, sure.
Wait, do you want to tell them about Star Souls?
Sure. So for those of you who have done a workshop with us already, you are sort of prepared or qualified to sign up for our Star Souls workshop, which is May 7th. This is a brand new workshop channeled by the Beings of Light, and it's coming and coming and coming. I've been in like a channeling intensive. But it's going to be really, really amazing. And the purpose of this workshop is for those of you who feel a strong connection to lifetimes on other planets and other galaxies, other dimensions, for those of you who resonate with being a star soul. I know that I always have, and in fact, one of my earliest memories as a child, in fact, it might be my earliest memory as a child, is that I knew, like completely beyond a shadow of a doubt, I knew that I was not from this planet. But what I didn't understand was that everybody else seemed to be treating me like I was like everybody else, that like I was a human like everyone else. And I didn't understand it. And so I spent a little while in my child mind trying to understand why don't they state the obvious, which is that I'm not from this planet. And so what I came up with was that, well, my parents must be paying everyone who comes into my life to sort of act and pretend like I'm a human. But, this is one of the many, knowingnesses that has come throughout my lifetime of having strong connections to other galaxies, other planets. And actually, I feel like most of my lifetimes are not actually on the earth. So for those of you that resonate with that and go, oh yeah, that sounds like me, this might be a great workshop for you. We do ask that those of you who sign up, we do ask that you have taken a workshop previously, because this is a more of an advanced offering. And if you have not already taken a workshop, you can always sign up for the 2-day workshop. That won't happen before the Star Souls workshop, but I imagine we'll be doing the Star Souls workshop again, probably in the fall or so.
Okay.
Another offering I'd like to speak about is our Rise to the Path membership program. So that's a monthly meeting. We meet the third Tuesday of every month. And it's really a beautiful kind of intimate group. And every month the beings of light kind of come up with what they want to focus on in that session. So often there'll be channelings, teachings. There'll often be a channeled meditation that generally Rob will lead. And then we have a nice section of Q&A and sharing, and members can just ask the questions that are coming up for them in their lives. So I think that people who are in that program are really enjoying it and getting a lot out of it. So if that resonates for any of you, you are welcome to join us. And oh yes, Stephanie's so good. She's already got the link there in the chat. We love Stephanie. We don't know what we did without her. She joined our team in like summer of 2020, and I can't think of what life would be like without Stephanie now. Rob, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just to mention quickly, the next 2-day workshop is May 21st and 22nd. On the first day, we do the Divine Virtues exercise that I talked about earlier, that tells you the qualities you're working on in this lifetime. And then we do the first of 2 group hypnotic regressions. This one is to contact one or more loved ones who are back on the other side, both people and pets. A lot of people will make contact with multiple pets. And then on the second day, May 22nd, we do a group between lives soul regression. That's the form of hypnosis I practice. It's a long process, takes about 2 hours. Start with some preliminary steps to relax. Then you go into a past life. You go from the past life to what is called your council of elders. Those are the beings who oversee your personal evolution, and they know everything about you. So when the group gets in front of their councils, I prompt them to ask a long series of questions that cover all the major areas of your life. The main questions we attempt to answer, and that we do answer, are what did you plan? Why did you make those plans? How are you doing in terms of fulfilling your plan, and how you can better fulfill your plan? But you can ask any question that's on your mind or in your heart. And a lot of people will come out of that and they'll say things like, the council answered every question I asked. I have no more questions about my life. So it is potentially a life-changing experience. Also, I just want to mention quickly, if any of you are native Spanish speakers, German speakers, or Polish speakers, there will be online workshops later this year in those languages. And all of this is listed on the events page at yoursoulsplan.com. So let me say a word about Ascension now. Ascension means literally ascending or going up in vibration. The entire planet is doing that, and every being who's going to stay on the planet has to do that in order to stay here. The ascension is being caused by all the light that's flooding the planet, which originates from the central sun. So the light has the effect of bringing to the surface everything of a low vibration, everything that is unlike itself. So what's happening in society at large and in individual lifetimes, both, is a lot of clearing, a lot of releasing. All the drama you see playing out on the international stage, that's the last vestiges of the karmic release of all kinds of separation and duality. And in individual lives, people are releasing stored trauma, either from this lifetime, past lives, or both. So this is very important work. This is the work that all of us came to the planet to do. And this is why there are so many resources available now, spiritual teachers, channels, healing modalities. We all have a lot of clearing and releasing to do, both individually and collectively. And you do this in service to your soul, in service to Gaia, and in service to the universe as a whole, really to literally every other being. Let me ask you, if you would, raise a physical hand if you have lost somebody you care about to suicide. And raise a physical hand if you know somebody who has lost somebody they care about to suicide. Okay, so that's just about everybody who's here. I want to share with you something from the suicide chapter in my second book, Your Soul's Gift. In Your Soul's Gift, there's a whole chapter about the pre-birth planning of suicide. What we find there, and this comes from a conversation, a channeling with Jesus, he tells us that suicide is never planned as a certainty, but it is planned as a possibility, a probability, or rarely a probability so high as to be almost certain. Now, you might well ask, why in the world would anybody plan a suicide, even if it's not very likely? Why would somebody do that? Well, some souls are, for lack of a better term, very ambitious, and they want to accomplish a lot in a lifetime, and they know that they're taking on a lot and there's a risk of suicide. But they also know that they're eternal beings, that they're not permanently harmed by anything that happens here. And so if they're not successful and the suicide occurs, there would be no judgment of that on the other side. There would just be a sense of incompletion. The soul would feel that they had not completed what they came to do and would plan another incarnation to complete it. Now, the suicide chapter in Your Soul's Gift contains what I feel is probably the single most healing piece of information I've come across in all the years I've been doing this kind of work. And for all of you who raised a hand to either of the two questions I just asked, I want to make sure I get this information to you tonight. And if you raised a hand when I asked who knows somebody who has lost someone to suicide, please write down what I'm about to say and share this information with those people, because this could be life-changing for them. Later in the same conversation with Jesus, he tells us, and I quote, "Every suicide preventable by outside forces was indeed prevented." I'll say it again. Every suicide preventable by outside forces was indeed prevented. Now, what does he mean by that? What he means, and this is on pages 410 to 411, those are the 2 pages to tell people about. What he means is that if a suicidal person has the slightest openness or willingness to change their mind, spirit knows that, and spirit stages an intervention. That in turn means that if you lost, or if somebody lost somebody they care about to suicide, there was literally nothing you could have done to prevent it. Because again, if the person had the slightest openness or willingness to change their mind, spirit would have known that, and spirit would have staged an intervention. So the intervention can be almost anything. A lot of times somebody will walk by, their guides will prompt them to smile at the person who's thinking suicidal thoughts. That smile makes the person feel just a little bit better, and then they don't go through with it. Sometimes it's just that a bird flies by, and that is the one impressing its consciousness on a small aspect of the one, the bird, so that it flies by, distracts the person, and then they don't go through with it. I met somebody in my travels who was sitting at a train station in Scotland. He was in his 20s. He was in dire straits, and he was debating internally, only in his own mind, he wasn't speaking this out loud, between what he considered to be his only 2 viable options. 1, suicide, or 2, robbing somebody at an ATM and taking their money after they had just withdrawn it. That's how desperate he was. He was approached by this mysterious, shadowy figure in a hoodie. This person stepped in front of him. He saw the hood over the person's face, but it was dark. He couldn't make out the face itself. This person was actually an angel that had taken human form. And the angel said to him, don't kill yourself. Don't rob someone at an ATM. Go out to the main street here in front of the train station, turn right, walk a few blocks. There's a spiritual study center down the street. Talk to somebody there. Don't do these 2 other things. Well, he went there, talked to the person who owned it. I was speaking there the next night. She said, why don't you come to this talk? And then I spoke with him personally afterwards. And then she ended up taking him into her home and giving him a fresh start in life. So just an example of a dramatic intervention. But again, the point being, if the suicidal person is open to changing their mind, spirit stages an intervention. Therefore, if a suicide is completed, there was literally nothing anybody could have done to prevent it. And once somebody really internalizes that knowing, that alleviates all guilt and self-blame. That can be life-changing for the people who have lost someone to suicide. Again, pages 410 to 411 in Your Soul's Gift. So a number of very good questions have been submitted, some in the chat box and some were sent to me by email before we started tonight. So some of them are very personal. I've chosen some that I think have more broad applicability. Somebody asked, why would someone plan to be a member of a gang? So what I found in studying pre-birth planning is that there are primary experiences and secondary experiences. A primary experience is one you definitely want to have in the upcoming incarnation. And so you plan your life in a way so that it's certain or highly likely to happen. A secondary experience is one that you're not necessarily seeking to experience, but you're willing to accept that it might happen. And the reason you're willing to accept that it might happen is because it could result from other things that you're planning as a primary experience. I think being a gang member, most likely, not in all cases, is probably planned as a secondary experience. The primary experience could be any number of other things. It might be being in a nuclear family with certain other members of one's soul group. It might be an experience of poverty. It might be an experience of alcoholism or drug addiction, any number of things. And then in the pre-birth planning session, there would be discussion with the guides who would say something like, well, you have to realize that if you're going to have this experience, it could lead to you choosing to join a gang. And then the response would be something along the lines of, I understand that. And if that happens, I will work with it to foster my own spiritual growth. It's a secondary experience. Somebody asked, do human souls have names? They do. And most people don't have any way of determining what their soul name is, but there are people who have the ability to figure this out. I met somebody like that along my path, and I asked her, what is the name of my soul? And she said, well, it can't really be pronounced in the English language. We don't have the letters or the sounds to do it accurately. But the closest we can come in English is Quintara or Quintaba. So there you go. But it really can't be expressed in the English language. The important thing there is not what it sounds like, it's the vibration that it conveys. Somebody asked how to tell if you are living the highest vibrational life plan. Let's put this question in context. Very few people will actually live out the highest vibrational life plan. Jesus probably did that, Buddha probably did that. The average person is not going to do that and is not expected to. That's not something that you expected of yourself, or that your soul expected of you, or that your guides expected of you. Rather than aim for the highest vibrational life plan, it's more realistic to aim for a higher vibrational life plan. So how would you know if you're doing that? Well, a couple of things to look for. One, feelings of excitement or joy. Excitement and joy are communications from your soul saying, yes, this is the way, the path for you. The other thing to look for is time distortion, or what some people call the flow state. So for all of you, there's probably at least one activity that when you do it, it will feel to you like only 10 minutes have gone by, but when you look at the clock, it'll be 2 hours later. Any kind of activity that creates that kind of time distortion, there's something there that is a significant part of your pre-birth plan. Somebody else asked, do we plan our death? You plan exit points. The average person plans, I think, 2 or 3 exit points. Why would you take an exit point? Basically under one of 2 sets of circumstances. One, you've completed what you came here to do, in which case it's time to go home. Or 2, the opposite of that, your soul concludes for whatever reason that you will not be able to do what you came here to do. And in that case, it's time to go home and plan another incarnation. There's also a rather lengthy email, and I'm not going to take time to read all of it, but I want to read one sentence that I think captures the essence of it. This person writes, I honestly believe if I died today, nobody would actually grieve for me. That gives you a sense of what is happening in this person's life. What I got intuitively when I read this description, this is a challenge and a catalyst to self-love. So many pre-birth plans are what I call learning through opposite life plans. You plan to encounter the exact opposite of what it is you want to eventually experience or cultivate within yourself. So if you want to cultivate self-love, you would plan very often to put yourself in circumstances where there's not going to be much love, perhaps even none, in the external environment. The lack of love in the external environment is intended to drive you within, where hopefully over time, you'll cultivate self-love. And then at some point down the road, take the love you now have for yourself and turn it outward in service to others. A learning through opposites life plan is very common. That's what most of us are doing on the earth plane, as I understand it. It's a very difficult path. It's also tremendously effective and tremendously powerful for learning certain kinds of lessons. If you've read either my second or third books, you know that there's an ascended master who plays a big role in the books. His name is Aaron. Aaron frequently says, and I quote, "You do not come into the incarnation for comfort or convenience. And that is most certainly true. Liesl, do you want to take some questions?
Well, I was hoping that you would briefly talk about the life plans of light workers, because I feel that the people who gravitate to our work tend to be light workers.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So let me share a personal story with you. This must have been back in 2003, 2004, when I was doing the initial research for my first book, Your Soul's Plan. I came into contact with a woman who channels Jesus. Now, she wasn't channeling Jesus for me. We were talking about something completely different. But as we were getting acquainted by email, she mentioned in passing that she channels Jesus. So we had an exchange of several emails about whatever it was we were discussing, and then the correspondence came to an end. Then a number of months went by in which we had no contact with each other. Then one day, out of the blue, I got an email from this woman, and the email says, "Jesus has asked me to give you the following message." And then she proceeds to quote him. And he says, quote, "I am Jesus. Through your work, you have come to hear of me. Currently, you are lumping the pre-birth plans of my light workers in with all other pre-birth plans. The pre-birth plan of a light worker is fundamentally different than other pre-birth plans. It would please me very much if you would make note of this in your book." Well, I was absolutely stunned by this. The first thought that went through my mind was, am I really getting an email from Jesus? The second thought that went through my mind was, could this be true? Is what he's saying correct here? So I dove back into the transcripts of the interviews and the sessions with the mediums and the channels. And sure enough, now that I knew what to look for, it was easy. And he was right. I was lumping the pre-birth plans of light workers in with everybody else. So he actually knew more about my work than I did. Anyway, when I looked more closely, I saw pretty quickly what the difference was. And here it is. It's one thing. The pre-birth plan of a light worker requires the light worker to go into and experience directly the vibration of whatever it is they're trying to change with their personal mission. So let's say that the mission you choose before you come into body is to do something about child abuse. Then you are going to plan to experience child abuse, probably directly, and if not directly, to at least be in the environment where it's happening. And the idea is that you can only really create true transformation from within the vibration you're trying to transform. So you would plan to experience the child abuse directly. It would catalyze certain divine virtues within you. That would increase your vibration. And when you increase your vibration, that transforms the whole vibration of child abuse or whatever it is that you're tackling with your personal mission. So that is the pre-birth plan of a light worker. Lisa, do you want to take some questions?
Yeah, sure. And I just want to make it clear to everyone, because I saw some different questions in the chat that kind of went by. I'm not going to be, the beings of light don't get really specific in terms of questions in people's lives. They're more, their information is more going to be of a spiritual nature. So it's not going, you're not going to get an answer of like, should I do this? Should I not do that? Just to be clear, I consider myself more of what would be considered a channel, not a medium. So with that sort of clarification, we'll take a few questions. And if I don't get something specific, we'll also see, what.
Like this probably once a month. So please join us in future months. Hopefully I can talk Lisa into joining us again. And then you can hear from her and the beings of light some more. Lisa, did you want to say any last comments?
Just that, I feel so much love for all of you, out there in the world. And, I feel the sense of the desire for expansion in your hearts, and it's really beautiful. And I thank you for being a part of this and other, similar modalities and workshops in the world, because I can't tell you how much a difference it makes on the planet right now for people to come together in a coherent kind of way toward evolution, toward healing, toward love on the planet, toward love towards the planet. And so, I say to all of you, regardless of what's going on in your life, regardless of the difficulties you're facing, there's something that is working in your life and in you, because you're here. You're here and in a place of wanting to open and grow and expand and blossom more. So I commend you for that.
So we wish you all blessings, and we hope to see you again sometime next month or in one of the workshops. Bye-bye.